Welcome to Desktop Deployment Essentials, our new series to help you prepare for your shift to Windows 10 and Office 365 Pro Plus. In the next few minutes, I'll walk you through Step 5 in our recommended deployment process wheel, what you need to know about planning for your current desktop security and compliance controls when moving to Windows 10 with Office 365 Pro Plus. Along the way, I'm going to point out a few common security-related components that might delay your deployment to Windows 10 and the things that you can do to lay the foundation for adding security capabilities over time, even if they're not part of your initial shift to Windows 10, Office 365 Pro Plus, and Enterprise Mobility and Security. Many of the security-related capabilities in Windows 10 alone are driving for the shift to the newer platform. Also, integration with cloud services and identity brings a new and continually updated protection set to your data, devices, and users. Now, before we go on to new capabilities that you can add as part of your move to Windows 10 and Office 365 Pro Plus and connect those experiences to the cloud, we'll start with a few trends that we're seeing that often interrupt deployment progress. First, one of the initial challenges you might encounter is hard disk encryption. Now, many solutions for hard disk encryption cannot be easily upgraded from a previous version of Windows to a newer version of Windows. Some vendors allow you to perform the upgrades when using the Reflect Drivers option with Windows Setup on certain versions of their platforms. Others may require you to unencrypt the drive prior to deployment, then re-encrypt after Windows is installed. And some also do not allow you to move from master boot record using legacy BIOS to GUID partition tables required for UEFI. Now remember, UEFI is required for many of the new virtualization-based security capabilities in Windows 10, which we'll get to in a moment. Now, one option to resolve these issues is using BitLocker, which is included in Pro and higher editions of Windows 10. This allows you to suspend protection for OS upgrades and feature updates as part of the process. Second, while we've seen that more than 99% of Windows apps are compatible between Windows 7 and Windows 10, the exceptions are often antivirus apps or VPN clients. Now, these apps often work around standard development practices and APIs, using often undocumented ways to protect your system or connect to network resources. As a result, these apps by nature can be fragile to changes when shifting to a newer version of Windows. Now, if your AV or VPN software doesn't work in Windows 10 or after upgrading, the fix is typically to replace the app you're using with something supported and tested in Windows 10. So now, let's look at security policies. One important tip here: your group policy settings used for older versions of Windows and Office might not translate directly to Windows 10 and Office 365 Pro Plus. And there are different considerations with newer security and compliance capabilities. So it's a good idea to use the Microsoft Security and Compliance Toolkit to get a baseline of the security policies for current versions of Windows and Office. Now, those were considerations for moving your current protections forward and things to be aware of before your shift. But let's take a look at new capabilities that you can take advantage of when moving to Windows 10 and Office 365 Pro Plus, along with cloud-based options from EMS and beyond. Starting with cloud-based identity. Azure Active Directory is the identity control plane for apps, devices, and cloud services, and is the modern way to connect to Office 365 and other cloud services. And conditional access allows you to define different authentication requirements based on where you're logging in from, which device you're using, as well as things like anomalous behaviors. Then at the device level, we think about biometrics as a unique identifier for simpler and more secure access to your devices and apps as we move towards the goal of eliminating passwords. Windows Hello offers device-based multi-factor authentication. It relies on the device itself, your PIN, or a unique biometric identifier such as your face or fingerprint, which you can enforce via policy. Now, beyond identity, you can also enable continuous protection against known and unknown threats. Windows 10 uses virtualization-based security at the core to ensure boot integrity and code integrity using Secure Boot. We can also stop credential theft with Credential Guard by maintaining user secrets and isolation from Windows. And Application Guard can isolate and mitigate browser-based threats by running the browser in an isolated container. All of these technologies use virtualization-based security in Windows 10 and are foundational changes that cannot be replicated in a Windows 7 system. Note that they also require UEFI, 64-bit Windows, and virtualization extension support with SLAT at the hardware level. So now let's look at another layer of optional protection to improve Windows and Office security using cloud services. Now, these can give you a new level of often real-time control that can instantly detect, resist, and respond to new attacks and attack types, especially compared to traditional software updating and AV signature files, where response and update deployment times are inherently slower. Along with the Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph, you have faster access to both information and protections from emerging threats. Now, here are a few examples that you can take advantage of, starting with Office. Data loss prevention built into Office 365 Pro Plus helps inform users of security policies when high-risk content like credit cards or identification numbers are detected. Policies can inform or block sending and sharing after notifying users. Also, Azure Information Protection is a complementary service that can be used with Office, allowing users to easily classify and label their Office files. It can trigger automatic action on labeled files, such as encryption or locking down sharing. We've also introduced Safe Links protection across Office apps to protect you against dynamic list of known malicious websites. Additionally, with a feature called Safe Attachments in Outlook, which goes beyond email filtering to inspect attachments, we inform the user of known malicious attachments and remove them from email. Then Office 365 Message Encryption, or OME, can also be used to safeguard email and attachment sent, ensuring only that intended recipients can view email content. OME works seamlessly with Google, Yahoo, and Microsoft Consumer Account Authentication, and one-time passcodes allow users of other email services to securely receive email as well. Additional protections are also available for Windows. For example, Windows Defender Application Control in Windows 10 operates off an approved allow and deny list of applications that Microsoft has checked for safety, and all that is managed by endpoint protection policies using Microsoft Intune. Next, Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection is a unified platform for preventative protection, post-breach detection, automated investigation, and response. It protects endpoints from cyber threats, detects advanced attacks and data breaches, it automates security incidents, and improves security posture. And additionally, the new Exploit Guard helps reduce the attack surface for running applications by preventing malware from getting into Windows and blocking untrusted processes from accessing protected folders. Finally, Microsoft Intune, which serves as a cloud-based management service for mobile scenarios, including iOS, Android, and Windows devices, can now be configured for co-management to complement and extend controls for specific workloads in System Center Configuration Manager. One advantage here is that devices accessing protected resources can be required to enroll into device management, even non-managed, non-domain joined, and non-Azure AD joined devices. You can also take advantage of granular configuration and compliance policy enforcement at the OS level. In app settings, they can be configured centrally and enforced for Office 365 Pro Plus and Store apps in Windows 10. So that was a run-through of core considerations and capabilities for security compliance when planning your shift to Windows 10 and Office 365 Pro Plus. Next, we'll continue to your next step in the deployment process wheel and explain your options for imaging and upgrading your PCs to current versions of Windows and Office using your preferred tools. To learn more, visit our Modern Desktop Deployment Center and keep following our Desktop Deployment Essentials series here on Microsoft Mechanics. Thanks for watching.